It was a warm summer evening when Rachel met John at the local bar. She had just celebrated her 10th wedding anniversary with her husband, Mark, but she was feeling restless and unfulfilled. John, a charming and handsome stranger, was visiting town on business and caught Rachel's eye from across the room. They struck up a conversation, and Rachel felt a spark she hadn't felt in years. Over the next few weeks, Rachel and John continued to meet in secret. They went on long drives, had dinners in cozy restaurants, and spent lazy afternoons in each other's company. Rachel felt alive for the first time in years, but she also felt guilty about betraying her husband. One day, Mark came home early from work and found Rachel's phone buzzing with messages from John. He confronted her, and she couldn't deny her affair any longer. Mark was devastated, but he also felt angry and betrayed. As Rachel tried to make amends, Mark struggled to come to terms with what had happened. He couldn't believe that the woman he had loved and trusted for a decade had been unfaithful to him. He felt like his whole world had come crashing down. Rachel tried to explain that she had been unhappy in their marriage for a long time, but Mark didn't want to hear it. He felt like he had been blindsided by her affair and couldn't forgive her for hurting him so deeply. In the end, Rachel and Mark decided to separate. Rachel moved out of their home and started a new life with John. But even though she was happy with her new partner, she couldn't help feeling guilty about the pain she had caused Mark. Years went by, and Rachel and Mark slowly drifted apart. They each found new partners and started new families. But the memory of their failed marriage and Rachel's adultery lingered in the back of their minds. Rachel had learned the hard way that forbidden passion can come with a heavy price. She had hurt the man she had once loved, and she had never quite forgiven herself for it. She had found happiness with John, but it was always tinged with regret and sadness. As for Mark, he had learned to trust again, but it had taken him a long time. He had moved on from his failed marriage, but he would never forget the pain of betrayal. He had learned that love can be fragile, and that even the strongest bonds can be broken by infidelity. In the end, Rachel and Mark's story was a cautionary tale about the dangers of adultery and the consequences it can have on everyone involved. It was a story about the power of love and the devastating effects of its betrayal. As a young and ambitious woman, I landed a job at a successful company. It was my dream job, and I was ecstatic to be part of such a renowned organization. I quickly climbed the ranks, and before I knew it, I was working closely with the CEO, who happened to be an attractive and charming man. At first, our interactions were strictly professional. But as time went on, I couldn't help but notice the way he looked at me during meetings or how he lingered a little longer than necessary when we spoke one-on-one. It was thrilling, but also dangerous. One day, after a few drinks at a company event, he leaned in and kissed me. It was electrifying, and I knew I was in deep trouble. Despite my reservations, we began an affair that lasted for months. We were discreet and careful, but eventually, the truth came out. The news spread like wildfire throughout the office. I was labeled as the woman who cheated with the boss, and I could feel the judgment and stares from my colleagues. I was ashamed, but also confused. I had never intended for things to go this far, and yet, here I was, in the middle of a scandal. Eventually, my boss's wife found out, and he was forced to resign from his position. I was lucky enough to keep my job, but the damage had been done. I was no longer the promising young professional who had worked hard to get where she was. Instead, I was the woman who had cheated with the boss. Looking back, I regret what happened. I was naive and foolish, and I let my emotions get the best of me. I lost sight of my values and integrity, and I paid the price for it. It was a hard lesson to learn, but I am grateful for the experience. It taught me that no job or person is worth compromising my morals and reputation. In the end, I learned that cheating with the boss may seem thrilling and exciting, but it never ends well. The consequences are too great, and the fallout is too damaging. It's not worth it.